great to see you, Dr. Anniken. It's a great pleasure that you wanted to join me in this talk today on inclusive playgrounds. Now, would you care to please introduce yourselves for the listeners?
Yeah, Mrs. Jespersen, thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Volker Anniken. I'm a member of the management of the Gold-Kramer Foundation and managing director of the Research Institute for Inclusion through Physical Activity in Sports. Little long name, but we're doing research in the wide field of inclusion for people with disability.
Yes. And where are you based?
We are based nearby Cologne in the nice city of Frechen. And this is our home base, and we're doing our studies all over Germany.
Yes. And talking about that, I was absolutely stunned with the work you did for the report on inclusive playgrounds in Germany. Would you care to tell a little bit more about that research?
First, we examined 1,000 playgrounds, quantitative, and then we did qualitative interviews with parents and experts and different people using playgrounds, what's their opinion, to get more and deeper details about the situation. And I think we have quite interesting results, which are very important to show what we have to done.
Yes. So in your opinion, what were the most remarkable findings of your investigations?
Yeah, in the end, it's not really surprising our results, but I think remarkable in the study of Aktion Mensch, it shows in numbers that we really only have few playgrounds in Germany which are really inclusive. For example, only 21% of the 1,000 playgrounds we examined has an inclusive character. Character means they are not inclusive, but they have maybe a few inclusive features, not completely inclusive. Kind of frustrating, only 1% of the playgrounds are wheelchair accessible around the play equipment itself. But at least 20% have barrier-free paths leading to the play equipment. But around the play equipment, only 1% of the playgrounds are really accessible for wheelchair. And talking about blind people, it's quite frustrating to see that only 1% have some kind of guidance system for people without visibility.
Yeah. So these are remarkable numbers, because it actually means that 80% of the German playgrounds are not accessible if you've got some sort of mobility impairment or disability, and that of course would go for parents as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a parent, you want to go with your child to a playground and not only watching what the child is doing. When you're using a wheelchair as a mother or father, you want to play with the child or with other childs and put them up on the play equipment and not only sitting in a wheelchair on the side of the playground. So it's not inclusive at all. It's exclusive if we don't have these accessibility for people in a wheelchair or blind people or people with problems in orientation or information.
Yes. So in your opinion, because ever so often in Denmark, where I'm based, we've got a very similar situation to Germany with very few accessible playgrounds. But what is the benefit of accessible playgrounds to children? Do children with disabilities want to go to the playground?
I mean, the the most important thing for me is that everyone can participate and meet other children. This is the main aim of a good playground. Being together, and being together not organized in a sports club, not organized in school or in other settings, in an unorganized setting. It's so important for the holistic development of the child. And not everything has to be 100% playable by everyone, but all children should have the opportunity to come to the playground and to choose what they want to do. And for the development and individual development, playgrounds can be a really nice and perfect base to get in the move, to be active, to meet children with and without disability. These are aspects in developing an inclusive society, which are very, very important.
Yeah, yes, because now you're in sports science also, and you're talking about here the emotional value, the social value of playgrounds. But you said get moving. I guess that in Germany the numbers are as grim as elsewhere in Europe when it comes to children with disabilities, that they are more physically inactive even than the typically developing children. Is that correct?
You mean children with disability are more active than
less physically active?
Sorry. We have a big problem in getting good programs for children, and not only children, also adults with disability. We have results which shows clearly that on the one hand, the motivation to do sports, to be active, is absolutely the same. And on the other hand, we have the problem that less children and adults with disability are regularly active in basic move activities, physical activities, and especially in sports.
Yes. So I think that playgrounds, when we talk physical activity for children, playgrounds would be the category active play, wouldn't it?
Yes.
That it's unstructured and so on.
Yeah.
So could you please elaborate a little bit on, in your opinion and in your findings, research work, because you've worked with this field for many years, what are the benefits of active play, in particular for children with diverse disabilities?
It's quite easy. If you do something and you realize you can do it, you're motivated more to go the next step. So even if you have not these perfect mobility maybe than your friend, because you're maybe in a wheelchair and you have the feeling you have not these options like your friend, you can, if you have the right office being active, if you have the right play equipment or movement options, you can develop on your own level the next steps. And playgrounds are perfect for this because you have the possibility to choose by yourself what's the next level when the playgrounds are perfectly conceptualized or planned. But this is so basic for child development in the motor movement, but also in cognitive ways. If you're able to find that movement option which fits to your possibilities, then you get on the frontiers and do the next step. And good playgrounds are really, in a creative way, perfect to support this.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think we've covered a lot of the things that we said could be interesting to talk about in this talk. So I'll move on to some of the other things that we talked about. What do you think? We all find it's right. Germany as well as Denmark have signed the Declaration of the Rights of People with Disabilities. We've signed the Declaration of the Rights of the Child. All of this, these United Nations policies, we've signed up for, and still we don't see that there is play for all, that the play rights are respected. What do you think is the biggest obstacle? What hinders this, do you think?
We don't have an inclusive mindset in Germany, for example, like in all areas, in all politics or in the society. Not yet, like in other countries where it is normal to think inclusive. Like I think when we plan meeting areas in cities or smaller towns, they are not thinking from the beginning inclusive. And this is a big problem in Germany. What I mean with we don't have the mindset being inclusive. It's getting better and better, and the legal requirements are getting more inclusive on some points of view. For example, less barriers in the digital software things, but like the implementation of the European Accessibility Act in Germany should not only implement it in the areas like digital accessibility. Unfortunately, we are just too slow, like, to make this process of inclusion a little bit faster. I think this is a main problem because the money is often the so-called reason not to build like EPMD grounds or something. If you have an inclusive mindset, you don't have a choice to do it. So we need more legal requirements being more strict in that way. You're right, as you said, the conventions are there. The rights of the person, also in Germany, of the people are there to take part in the society and in each corner of the society.
Yeah. So it's, do you think, is it the mindset, of course, first and foremost, but some have claimed that it's also a hesitation due to economy, that economy is an excuse for not doing more. Have you come across that in some of the projects you've seen?
I don't have numbers or statistic for that, but that's what I mean. We have, like in Germany, for example, the economy is not forced to be inclusive enough. They have to be forced more.
Yes.
It's getting more step by step, but it's not really 100% political power you need for this. I repeat, the process of inclusion is very, very slow in Germany.
Yeah.
We have a good process, but it's very slow.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm moving on, because you're touching on something quite central here that, I think it was set in the ICF, World Health Organization's ICF, back from 2001. They said that no one was disabled, but the environment, the surroundings were disabling. And that is basically, isn't that it? That you need to make the environment welcome people, so that your environment is planned right for all sorts of uses, for instance, with universal design.
Yeah, exactly. It's a point. If you plan with universal design in all different areas, buildings, playgrounds, sport halls, swimming pools, all different working space, it would be much easier for the process of inclusion.
Yeah.
And definitely this has to be the changing in the mindset, looking not on the person, looking on the setting. We have to change. And if we see like community-based developments, city developments, there are really nice concepts. And if you think about new built playgrounds, it's getting more attractive, not always inclusive, but the newer ones are not so bad. So they're nice, they're attractive. So step by step, but the setting has to be changed, not the person.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. So one of the things that, in particular, older children love most is climbing up high. And
Yes.
for us, when we work with our designs, one of the best ways is these big climbing nets. And, you know, there's no chance a wheelchair ever would get up into them. And also it would be problematic for many wheelchair using children to get out of their chair and use these nets. So what about equipment like that? Because that would often be a centerpiece in a playground. How do you level that out?
Yeah, but why not? I mean, it's okay that I can't do it if I can do other things.
Yeah.
That's what I meant with 100%. Like the 100% is always individual. Like a blind person, a person in a wheelchair, or cognitive problems. I used always these ones climbing as high as possible, but you also have people not in a wheelchair who are afraid of climbing up or find it boring climbing up. In the end, it's always giving options and creative ways to get in a play, to do things by myself. That is important. And it's okay that I can't do it.
Yeah, that you
sometimes.
That you can't manage everything. As long as you can manage something, you know, and something interesting.
Everybody wants to manage as much as you can, but in one point it comes to a point where you has to be realistic to say, okay, would be nice, but it's not possible.
Yeah, because it's the same for all of us, isn't it? You know, I won't be able to run a marathon tomorrow. It's not going to happen.
For example.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Then.
But
yeah.
One thought or one thing I forgot. If the child in a wheelchair would like to climb up high or to pull a little bit out of the wheelchair, it's possible if you have a good ground and not sand or grass.
Yeah.
Because then you can't go there.
Yeah.
So it's interactive.
Yes. You know, we work with, in our guidelines at Kampen, we work with the 3 principles that you should be able to get there or get around. That means the surfacing accessibility is okay. And then you should be able to stay. That means there are points where you can withdraw, get a break. There's shadow, there's nature. And then you should be able to play. That means there's a wide selection of different play opportunities at ground level, but also, of course, more challenging up high, so that there's a choice, because everyone can't do everything, but everyone should be able to do something.
That's it.
Yeah. Good. So on that note, when we talk about other nations doing it well, have you... Yes. Good. I was just wondering, did you visit any of the actual Mensch Stuchtenbrück playgrounds? Did you have them? Did you see any of them in real life? Some of these playgrounds?
Yeah, we have one in near here in Cologne.
Yes.
And it's very important and like a very good project Aktion Mensch and Rewe are doing, because they doing these good practice, best practice, good practice playgrounds. We need to show like others, just to get impression how easily you can realize a good playground.
Yeah. So when you saw that playground, if I may ask, so what were your impressions? Was there anything that you found surprising when you saw the playground?
I mean, if you always think about these things that you need meeting points for people to come together, you have a look on this, and that's always my thoughts. Seeing these kind of playgrounds, or also playgrounds like on photos or drawn playgrounds, you really get in quite quick an impression: does it work or does it not work, because of the play equipment and the whole surrounding. So this is always my first thought when I go on a playground. And we just, in my neighborhood, they just built a active playground for like refugees nearby a refugee camp. And they did like EPDM on the ground. It's quite good for the purpose they did it. So this is always my a little bit too analytic view on the playgrounds when I pass by.
Yeah, but that's also, if there's one last question, it would be on risk taking, because we touched a little bit upon it, but I remember that last time we talked, you had quite specific points on risk taking for children with disabilities.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're growing more and faster if you have like success. It's develop. This is a human developing thing. We all know, and sometimes you need to get a little bit further than you have thought, and it makes you, in the situation you get adrenaline, but after that you're really happy that you tried and that you make it, and it makes you stronger. And especially childs are getting more power to do the next things and being more self-confident. And I like seeing this very much, especially for children with disability who grows on the things they're doing.